Hello everyone, how's it going? And welcome to our first look at Wild Rift patch 4.3. Now this might be a bit of a surprise to you all because normally we don't see these first look tweets for these big patch notes like 4.2, 4.1 and now 4.3, but they wanted to show us the new look at the first look for patch 4.3, and with so many little champion system item changes and also adjustments, I think it's fair that they could just all fit it onto one kind of slide in a way. So I think it's totally fair that they've gone for this sort of approach to do a first look before the patch notes. But bearing in mind, patch notes is under 24 hours away, so I think I would have liked to seen this a little bit earlier, to be honest, rather than under 24 hours before the actual patch notes go live. But anyway, I've got the first look here for you. I've got everything here for you. We're going to be going through the changes, but I have to say before we get into this is looking pretty neat. This is looking pretty good. I mean, compared to what it looked like before, it was like a Google Sheets before with just like a little bit of text on it. This is definitely a cooler layout, a lot more fresh. And yeah, it's kind of nice to read. It's a lot better to read than the other one anyway. Before it was just like a dull gray background on like a Google Sheets. Now we get some cool little icons and everything as well. But anyway, enough about me praising you know, the team at Wild Rift for their nice little approach to first look. Let's get into the important stuff. First, we're going to take a look at the champion changes. Now we only have 2 champion changes in patch 4.3. First one is going to be Ornn. The nerfed Ornn is finally here. I think this should have probably happened a patch before, but I still think it's fair that they still kind of waited a little bit, wait to see how players would adjust to Ornn, maybe look to try and find some counters to Ornn. The real thing is that there is no counter to Ornn right now. Ornn is just super tanky. You get so much health, so much armor, so much magic resist, and you also do a lot of damage, and you have a lot of crowd control at the same time. Like, this champion has it all. I would say one of the best Baron laners to play right now because he's kind of easy to play, and also he never really has any bad matchups. So they're nerfing him a little bit. The passive, the Living Forge, additional health, armor, and magic resist is going down at level 1, level 5, level 10, at level 15. It's going by 4, 5, 6, and 7%. So not as much during the early game, but once you reach the late game, 7% is a really big nerf. It means that all the additional health, armor, and magic resist that you'll be building, normally you get more health, armor, magic resist thanks to its passive. Now you're going to be getting a little bit less. Will this change much? I don't really think so, especially with runes coming in like Overgrowth, giving you so much maximum health when you're killing minions or monsters or even getting champion takedowns. I think this is going to be a big patch for Ornn, and I think just tanks in general, because you have so many great runes that you can run. So I think it's only warranted that Ornn does get a nerf at the same time as, you know, tanks are getting a lot of really strong runes at the same time. So it's pretty nice. So yeah, bit of a nerf to the health, armor, and magic resist on the passive, and also a little bit of a nerf to the second ability's damage, the percentage of maximum health. It goes from 7 to 21 down to 5 to 24. Well, I say down to 5 to 24. It's actually more maximum health in the later stages of the game, so you actually get a little bit more damage in the later stages of the game, but actually you get quite a lot less in the early stages. So 2% less damage depending on your maximum health, but now your maximum health will now scale more with your second ability, so you'll be able to deal a little bit more damage. So a little bit of early game nerf, bit of a late game nerf, but to be honest, I think Ornn is just super strong during late game anyway. I don't think he really needed this kind of buff. I think it would have been fine to keep it as 5 to 21, to be honest with you, and I still think Ornn would have been a completely fine spot. But a little bit of buff to Ornn in the later stage of the game with the brittle damage on the second ability, but I think the big nerf is definitely to the passive of Ornn. You know, both the armor, magic resist, and health percentage getting nerfed when you build these stats with items. The second one is Soraka. Now, obviously, we've got the little teaser and also the news from PBE that Soraka is getting a rework in this patch. The rework itself doesn't seem to be on this first look. I wonder if it's going to be on the patch notes itself, or maybe they've changed a few things, because some of this is a little bit different to what we actually saw on the on like Chose's video with the changes that's happening to Soraka. One of the changes that's not on here is that Soraka's second ability now doesn't reduce your health and doesn't use your health. So I'm curious to see if that's still going to be a thing or not, because this first look tweet doesn't actually show this. But again, these are just first looks. This doesn't actually show all the changes. So there could be more changes to some of these champions and some of these items, etc., a bit later on down the line. And also, the first ability is a little bit different to what we saw in Chose's video. We saw that when you land your first ability, you reduce the cooldown of the second ability, but now it just says cooldown is reduced when it hits an enemy champion. So I wonder if this just means that the first ability is now just going to be reduced if you land your first ability, which I think is fair enough. But now now it's different to what, you know, Chose's video said. So I'm curious to see if they've done a few changes. I think Chose released a few updates about PBE. They obviously changed Berserker Grease. It used to be 30 attack damage and 10% attack speed. Now it's, I believe, 10 attack damage and 30% attack speed. So it definitely has been some changes since the release of PBE, and also from then until now, when the patch notes and when the patch itself is being released very, very soon. So yeah, I'm just curious to see if these changes are actually going to be in play, or whether they're just like a misread, or, you know, whether the changes are actually going to come in. The cooldown though of the second ability has gone up though. So they're kind of nerfing the second ability. Again, if this is with the rework that's also happening with her, where her second ability doesn't reduce health, I guess the cooldown going up is fine. To be honest, I still think Soraka is going to be absolutely insane if her rework actually goes to live. If the health doesn't get reduced when you use your second ability, because she'll basically turn into a sonar. You just spam your abilities over and over again, and you're just going to be healing over and over again. So I can totally understand if that rework is coming in, that they're increasing the cooldown of the second ability. I don't think that warrants the insane buff that she's getting for her second ability. Not being able to reduce health anymore is a really, really huge buff for Soraka. And also this is pretty big as well. It means that you can use your first ability more often to deal a little bit more damage, and also get a little bit healing for yourself. So some pretty big changes for Soraka. Definitely. Again, it doesn't have the rework on here with the second ability, but maybe it's in the full patch notes. But I think Soraka is going to be one of the best supports definitely in the next patch. System or item changes. First up, we have the Dusk Blades of Draktar. This was a little bit leaked by Chose. Well, I keep saying leaked, but it's on the PBE, so it's not really a leak, because it's a public beta environment, so anyone can pretty much go onto it, unless they, as long as they have like a Chinese account and everything. But first, a basic attack against an enemy champion causes 20 to 125 bonus physical damage and slows enemies by 99% for 0.25 seconds. Cooldown is refreshed when an enemy has been taken down. Okay. Interesting. It says cooldown will be refreshed when the enemy has been taken down. So the basic attack against the enemy champion causes 20 to 125. So the big thing with Duskblade before is that you had to be unseen. You had to either go invisible or come from an unseen position, and then you had to quickly auto attack to get the extra damage. Now you don't actually need that with Duskblades. You just need to, you know, first basic attack against the enemy champion, boom, it does the bonus physical damage, and also slows them as well for the same amount. Interesting that the ability, the item itself doesn't have a cooldown, but it says cooldown be refreshed when an enemy has been taken down. So does this mean that Duskblade will now work on every champion, but will only work on that champion once, and then when you get a takedown, it gets refreshed? I'm not really too sure how that works, because the item itself doesn't have a cooldown here. So it's really, really interesting the way they're actually explaining Duskblade. But I think this item becomes a lot more viable on some other champions that you can build on. Maybe something like Jace, it could be really good for the auto attack damage. Maybe even AD carries could be very, very good to get a little bit of extra damage. I think it opens up a lot more doors for this item, but I still think it'd be very, very strong on assassins, because the item is just absolutely incredible. Gives you a lot of attack damage, gives you the armor penetration, allows you to do bonus physical damage. So I think overall it'll still be an assassin item, but it's interesting the way they've changed it, because it's going to be really, really cool to see how, you know, how this maybe gets built onto some other champions. Support items accelerate the upgrading speed of the quest items, and giving the advanced support items a sustaining growing effect. Now we obviously knew this already, again, from Chose's video from the PBE, but if you don't know, they're basically removing the second support item. So at the moment, in the current state of the game, you start off with your relic shield. You then farm 500 gold, or you just last hit, or you just gain 500 gold passively, and then upgrades into the second item, which I believe is Targon something. I said Targon something. I can't remember the name exactly. And then after that, you need another 500 gold to go into the Bulwark, which is the fully upgraded version of Relic Shield, which at the current time gives you percent cooldown every single time you get a takedown on your active items. On your active boots enchant. Now they're changing it. Obviously, I know this because of the PBE leaks from Chose. Again, I'm not too sure on the exact numbers and the exact, what's actually going to happen. But you can kind of see from here how it is. So accelerated upgrade speed basically means they're removing the second one, and now you only need 500 gold as a support from Relic Shield up until the fully completed item. This is going to give supports a huge power spike in the early game, like an insane power spike. Being able to complete your support item after 500 gold is absolutely huge. This means that you can, you don't have to worry about your support item. This means it gets fully upgraded at around about the 4-5 minute mark, which is very early. And now it says giving the advanced support items a sustaining growing effect. This is a new effect to support items where you get health, and you also get AD or ability power adaptive, depending on what you have most of over time. So I believe, if I remember correctly, it's every minute you gain stats. So if you complete your all support item at 4 minutes, I believe the stats go up to 10 stacks. So at 10 minutes, you get the 4 stacks of this growing effect on the support item. So about like 14-15 minutes into the game, you're going to get this huge amount of health and also AD or ability power, depending on what you're building most. So I think this is another huge buff to supports, which is actually kind of crazy because I already think supports are in a pretty decent spot at the moment. I don't think they needed to accelerate the speed of the quest item, to be honest with you, and also give them more stats at the same time, because I think supports already get a crazy amount of gold. And maybe at the same time, thinking about this now as I'm talking through saying this might actually give supports less gold overall, because the crazy thing about support items is that getting that 1000, that 0 to 1000 golds, you get so much power from all that gold that you get. But now you can't get 1000 gold from the support item. You only get 500 instead. So they're actually cutting the support item gold income by half, but instead of the gold, they're giving them stats instead. So you're maybe not going to get as much gold as supports, but you're still going to get a lot of great stats from the new growing effect. So very cool, very interesting. I have to see how that works with support. So I'll definitely be doing support content for the next patch. Boots and enchantments. Make adjustments to all the boots and their build paths and prices to ensure that they are providing enough support during the earlier fights that may break out. Doesn't actually mention anything about the enchantments, but with the boots, again, we know this from PBE. We have new boots coming in. But boots like Berserker Greaves giving you attack speed, and also Sorcerer boots giving you magic pen ability power and also magic regeneration. But also all the boots now build with a tier 1 item, sorry. So whether you want, Berserker Greaves, you go for boots plus longsword, and also you need to spend a little bit more gold to get that tier 2 upgrade for your boots, which I think is going to be really big, because all these boots now give extra stats. The armor and magic resist boots now give you health. The gluttonous greaves now give you more AD. Berserker Greaves gives you attack speed and also AD. So it's giving boots a little bit more power. It is going to cost a lot more gold, because at the moment to upgrade it only costs like, was it overall like 600 gold? I think it's more than 600. I think it's like 1000 gold at the moment, isn't it, to get your boots and also your second tier of boots. So not the boots enchant, but the second tier. Now it's going to cost like an extra, I think it's 400 500 gold, which is going to be really big for boot enchantments as well, because at the moment stasis enchant is 1000 gold. It's super expensive, but it's not that bad because the boots before that is actually not that expensive to buy. But now with the boots price going up, it means that stasis technically goes up in price as well, which means that we might be seeing a lot more players maybe going out from this whole stasis effect, which makes it very interesting, because you could build like other boots upgrades instead. We'll have to see how that affects the meta, but I think there's a lot of cool new boots coming in, and also a lot of cool adjustments to, you know, some of the boots and some of the enchantments, which obviously we'll get more details with the full patch notes when it comes out. And the Nexus Shield, end of the Nexus Shield mechanism from 18 minutes down to 16 minutes. Now, this is the big massive shield, the over half shield that you get on the Nexus when you destroy the first inhibitor. At the moment in the current game up to 18 minutes, if you destroy the first inhibitor, the Nexus is going to get a shield, double the amount of the health. So you have the health, and then you also have the shield, which is going to give you basically double the health to try and break through. Now, they're reducing that time from 18 minutes down to 60 minutes, which I think is completely fair. I think it was very, very difficult to actually finish games with this Nexus Shield. It's kind of cool for like a comeback mechanism for the Nexus Shield, but I do think that it lasted a bit too long. I think 18 minutes is way too long. So then bringing it down to 16 minutes is probably going to reduce the average game time, which I think is totally fair. I don't think there's any problem with that at all. Scry's Bloom, we saw this briefly in the patch preview, but there's now a fixed direction based on the Scry's Blooms that you attack. I don't like this personally. I don't like this at all. I think this is really, really bad, unless it has like an AoE effect around the Scry's Bloom at the same time. But the thing is with Scry's Bloom is it's not only good for vision, but it's also good at clearing out vision. Like, you know, clearing out wards. I should say vision twice. Clearing out wards. So sometimes you don't want to use a Scry's Bloom in a certain direction. You want to use it in another direction instead to destroy a ward. So you just deny the vision. Now you don't have the opportunity to do that. You're actually just restricted to what direction the Scry's Bloom is going to go into, which I don't really like. I don't think it's great. I mean, I can understand why they're bringing it. Again, it's kind of this case of like making it easier for people to understand how Scry's Bloom works and giving you the most important vision in the game, which I can totally agree with. At the same time, again, this high level play and also giving you an opportunity to clear wards and make that decision, whether you want vision or whether you want to try and clear out wards, I think is very, very important for the game. So personally, I don't like this decision, but it is what it is. Attack from any angle will only make them grant vision in the corresponding jungle. Scry's Bloom will immediately die when attacked by the enemy without any vision effect. This is also going to be pretty bad as well for invading, because normally with invading you can hit the Scry's Bloom the opposite way towards the enemy jungle. Now you can't do that. It's always going to head towards the corresponding jungle. So say for example you're on the dragon side on the map, you're on the opposite side of the map, you're on the blue side of the dragon, you're walking over to the red side of the jungle and you want to try and hit the Scry's Bloom towards the enemy red buff to try and get vision to see where the enemy jungler is. Now you can't do that. You're always fixed, and that Scry's Bloom that's on that side is always going to go from the red all the way to the blue buff, which again, I don't like. I don't think it's very good, but it is what it is. And they expanded the vision of Scry's Bloom, which is quite nice on the tail part. And that's it, could for grant vision of the dragon pit. So I guess that's one of these things, but yeah, it is what it is. And then we have the adjustments. Now, Font of Life, as we know for the runes, is turning into a minor rune. Font of Life is not going to be a keystone for the next patch. We have runes like First Strike and Glacial Augment coming in as a primary rune. So Font of Life is going to be going to be moved into a minor rune for the resolve tree. Now this does mean that this is going to get nerfed, which this nerf, by the way, even though you might feel like, oh, why are they nerfing Font of Life? Font of Life would have been way too powerful if it kept the same stats and it also moved into a minor rune. So I think them nerfing Font of Life is totally fair. Team Heal is now not 6% of your maximum health and plus 30% of your ability power, now 3% of your maximum health and 15% of your ability power, and the self heal has gone from 2% of your maximum health plus 10% of the ability power to 1% of your maximum health plus 5% ability power. Again, the only reason they're doing this is because Font of Life is turning from a keystone to a minor rune, and that's pretty much it. That's everything for the first look. Only one page for this first look. Not really too much details about some of the major changes, you know, things like runes, support items and boots they roughly mentioned, but they haven't actually mentioned the full stats and everything. They're keeping that for the patch notes, but I will be giving you all a patch notes rundown for patch 4.3, which I'll also be doing a giveaway on that video, so make sure you keep an eye out for that. As I mentioned, it is under 24 hours away until the patch notes are going to be released, so make sure you keep an eye out for that one. Until then, stay safe, and I will see you all in the patch notes video later on this evening. Take care. Peace.